Welcome to Start Conversations. Most people go through life reacting to what's in front of them. They make decisions based on what's obvious. The job offer right in front of them, the relationship dynamic they've always known, or the market trends that are already mainstream. But the people who truly succeed, whether in business, investing, or even relationships, aren't just reacting. They're seeing the patterns before they fully emerge. They don't just spot opportunities, they predict them. They don't just understand problems, they anticipate them before they happen. And that's not luck, it's a skill. A skill you can train your brain to develop. Today I'm going to break down how you can train your mind to see patterns others miss, and use that skill to make better decisions, seize opportunities earlier, and stay ahead of the curve in every area of your life. The reasons most people don't see patterns is because they are trained to focus on individual events, not on the connections between them. Think about it. Most people analyze life in snapshots. They look at a single problem without asking what led up to this. They see one opportunity without asking where is this trend going. They focus on a crisis without noticing the slow-moving warning signs that came before it. This is why people get blindsided by layoffs, breakups, or financial crashes. The warning signs were there. They just weren't trained to see them. Most people rely on what is obvious, but high-level thinkers look for what is forming beneath the surface. And once they start seeing patterns, life stops feeling random. So how do you develop this skill? How do you train your brain to see the unseen? That's where the pattern recognition framework comes in. There are 3 steps to training your mind to see what others don't. Step 1, zoom out, see the system, not the snapshot. Most people only see what's right in front of them, but every event, good or bad, is part of a much bigger system. The best decision makers ask, what larger trend is this connected to? Think about industries. The rise of streaming services wasn't random. It was part of a larger trend toward on-demand culture. The rise of AI today isn't happening in isolation. It's part of a larger transformation of how human labor is evolving. If you only focus on what's happening now, you'll always be playing catch-up. If you train yourself to see the system behind the event, you'll always be ahead. Here's a practical shift. Whenever you analyze something, step back, ask yourself, what is this a small part of? Where is it leading? Step 2, recognize repeating patterns. The past predicts the future. History repeats itself. Human behavior follows predictable cycles. Markets rise and fall. Businesses boom and collapse. Relationship patterns play out again and again. The best strategists understand this. So instead of guessing the future, they study the past. Because in most cases, what happened before is a strong predictor of what will happen next. Here's a practical shift. Whenever you see something happening, ask yourself, has something like this happened before? What were the warning signs last time? What came next? If you analyze past patterns, the future becomes much clearer. Step 3. Think in probabilities, not absolutes. Most people think in black and white. This will work, this won't. This is a good investment, this is a bad one. But high-level thinkers operate in probabilities. They don't ask, will this succeed? They ask, what are the chances? And how do I position myself so that if I'm right, I win big? And if I'm wrong, I don't lose everything. This is how investors build wealth, how businesses predict trends, how people make smarter decisions in relationships, careers, and life. Here's a practical shift. Instead of looking for certainty, train yourself to look for likelihoods. Adjust your moves based on probability, not emotion. Most people live in reaction mode. They only see what's in front of them. But if you want to start predicting opportunities, avoiding blind spots, and making smarter decisions, you have to train your brain to think in patterns. Zoom out and see the system, not just the snapshot. Look to history, because the past predicts the future. Think in probabilities, not absolutes. Once you do this, life stops feeling random. You stop being surprised by success and failure, because now you're not just reacting, you're predicting. Take a moment and think about something in your life right now. Career, relationships, business. Where could you apply this thinking? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you want to go deeper into this, check out this month's issue of the Stark Perspective. Before we wrap up, I pulled a question that fits perfectly with today's topic. How do you know if a pattern is real or if you're just imagining connections that aren't really there? This is a great question, because one of the biggest mistakes people make when trying to spot patterns is forcing connections that don't actually exist. The difference between real pattern recognition and just seeing coincidences comes down to one thing: repetition. A real pattern follows a structure. It happens again and again, across different situations, people, or industries. A coincidence happens once and doesn't repeat in a meaningful way. For example, if you notice that every major economic crash in the last 100 years had similar warning signs, that's a real pattern. But if you meet two people named John who both like coffee, that's just a coincidence. If you want to train your mind to tell the difference, look for patterns that repeat across time and scale. The more often you see it happen, the more predictive power it has. There was once a group of 6 blind men who had never seen an elephant before. They were brought to the animal and asked to describe what it was like. Using only their sense of touch, each man reached out and touched a different part of the elephant. One man felt the side and said, "An elephant is like a wall." Another grabbed the trunk and said, "No, an elephant is like a snake." A third touched the tusk and said, "You're both wrong. An elephant is sharp like a spear." Another felt its leg and said, "No, an elephant is like a tree." One touched its ear and said, "You're all wrong. An elephant is like a fan." And the last man touched the tail and said, "No, it's like a rope." They argued endlessly, each believing they were right, because each of them had only experienced one small piece of the bigger picture. But none of them stepped back to see how their individual observations connected. That's exactly how most people move through life. They experience one part of a situation, one event, one failure, one success, and they assume they understand the whole picture. But in reality, they're only seeing a fragment. This is why most people miss patterns. They're looking too closely at individual moments without zooming out to see the full structure. The best decision makers don't get stuck on just one piece. They step back, they compare perspectives, they connect the dots, and that's how they see what others don't. If you want to train your mind to think this way, start practicing it in your daily life. Next time you're faced with a decision, ask yourself, am I looking at the whole elephant or just one part of it? Drop a comment below and let me know. What's a situation where you thought you understood something, but later realized you were only seeing part of the picture? And if you want to go deeper into this, check out this month's issue of the Stark Perspective, where I break this down with real-world examples. Next week, we're talking about why most people struggle to change their lives and how to break through when nothing seems to be working. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.